Welcome everyone to the Pantheon of M. I am Ray.
And I'm Evie.
So, Evie, what is our show for this week?
Cloak and Dagger, Part 2.
That's right. As I mentioned in our last week's episode, this takes place in New Orleans, and this is the final half of the series. Oh, season 1, sorry. We start off in episode 6, I believe. I don't recall the name of it, but this is
Yes,
more...
it is.
This is more of a flashback episode, which is really interesting because out of the whole series, this is the only one that has that kind of Groundhog's Day event.
Yes.
And this is where they actually develop their powers.
Right.
Because they have that Dragon Ball Z hyperbolic chamber scenario.
Okay.
I know you have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, you'll know. Like, it's a scene. Let me get into the show, and then I'll explain myself as we develop. Okay. So, as we spoke about in the first episode, the reason how they got their powers is there was an oil refinery that collapsed, and there was an explosion that took place. And in that explosion, an energy was released in the water, and that triggered something in themselves that gave them additional gifts. And now in this episode, we get to find out what was going. Well, we kind of get an understanding of what was going on in the explosion. We learned that in the initial pilot episode, Tandy, that was the dagger, she was about 8 years old. Her father drives off the pier because he was on the phone. He was talking to Ivan Hess, who was the project manager of on site at the oil rig, and there was problems with heat shields when they're drilling. When the energy when they're drilling was creating a lot of heat. And they were supposed to install heat shields to the oil refinery to prevent damages or incur explosion.
Exactly.
But due to cutbacks, the shields weren't put in place.
Right. So
the conversation that was going on the phone was that. So Nathan, Tandy's father, was upset, and that's what happened. So that's what you saw in the pilot, him veering off the road and into the pier. And so we learn in this episode Ivan's story. Ivan, who was on the phone talking to Nathan from the other's perspective. And Ivan was the only survivor of the explosion on the oil refinery. And we find out what happened. Now in this episode, we find out what happens to the employees and where he's been all this time since the incident.
Right.
Okay. During that time, we learned in the last episode that Ivan's daughter, Amina, has taken over as the project manager for Roxxon Oil, Roxxon Refineries Energies, and she's actually a really good person trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And now we don't know how much she could shift because Dagger hasn't touched her yet to see what she's really like, but we're assuming she's, as far as we know, a good person. No hidden dark closets or whatever. So, with this one, we end up how it ends off is that we find out that Ivan has been in a catatonic state, and by touching him. She's been able to see him a little better, like alert, but still in some sort of like locked away in his head. So she realizes that if she gets Tyrone in the room with her, and they both touch it, because his power is that if you touch someone, he releases their nightmares, their fears. Mm-hmm. So by them touching both Ivan's hands and conversing with him, they may be able to unlock him and to hopefully release him from his catatonic state. Instead, they go deeper in his mind, where he's actually a prisoner in his own head from the incident. And we find out he's reliving the same events, the final, was it 2 minutes, 3 minutes of the final moments of the oil explosion?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
We'll say 3. They say a minute and a half. We'll say 3 minutes. Of what, and it's in a loop. So he's in a time loop of the last days, or the last moments of before the explosion.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So he's reliving every single event, and it's a 3-dimensional, like fully immersed like world that when you're going into it. So you're seeing everything, they're living everything that he's living, and they're actually sentient in his world, and they're kind of trapped in his world unless they focus to get out of it.
Exactly.
So that's how you get like Groundhog's Day, because every time the explosion hits, it resets, and they go back and they relive the events over again, and you find out what it is that's going on and what's going on.
Right. Oh, you want me to tell it?
Should I tell it?
Yeah, you can tell.
Okay. Well, the energy that release that got into it's a dark force energy, and in this case, when it releases, the first people who were at the tanks, it exploded because of the pressure of pressure buildup,
You're right. Yeah.
and energy got released, and it sprayed them like kind of like a mist of energy, and it released a dark energy, which in this case increased their fear 10,000-fold.
Yeah, definitely.
And the result was they turned into like zombies almost.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, they were zombies at the end.
Yeah, but like rage and filled zombies, and it was just dark energy like they're refusing on. And how it worked was kind of cool. It was I won't say what it reminded me of, but like whenever they come in contact with you, it would spread.
Yeah.
So within the few minutes of the time of the explosion that followed the explosion, all the workers were in contact with each other, and they all became like crazy rabid zombies.
Yeah.
And only Ivan, who was in his office at the time, was immune to it. But because it was still building up, it was going to be a massive explosion, killing everyone on board the oil refinery. So I think because where Ivan was, he was sort of like protected inside, shielded.
Yeah.
As a result, he gets to relive that scene over and over and over again. And every time he tries to his attempt was to try to go down to the refinery and shut off the valves. But he could never get down there because there are too many zombies or crazy staff members. So when Tandy and Tyrone arrive on the scene, they learn that let's go down and do it ourselves because Tyrone could teleport and turn off. And you realize that he can't do that.
He couldn't do
it. Only Ivan could do it because it's his nightmare.
Yeah.
He's got to control it. You know, they can only influence him by doing it.
True.
So what happened was they decided to leave him or get exited.
Yeah.
Because he's a lost cause, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
And what I should mention too, the phone call between Ivan and Tandy's father, Nathan. The phone would ring in the sequence of reliving it. The phone would ring every so often where Ivan is, and that would be Tandy's father.
Yeah.
And knowing that, she picks up the phone, and Tandy's father would speak to her on the phone.
Yeah.
And that, because it's been 8 years since she last spoke to her father, so she was like elated, but like just captured too, like wanted to talk to her father. So she remained in the dream state while Tyrone exited.
Right.
And then realizing that he was like tricked to leave and she was stuck inside his mind, trapped, he went back in. Yeah. And now time works differently in the state of mind. Yeah. So he finds out that she's been in this state for 200 attempts.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but in that time, she's been able to perfect her powers.
Sure.
So she's able to throw her light daggers at the enemy to keep people to wear people away, so she can stay on the phone. And she's almost like locked in the trance herself now because she's relived it so many times. And then the series itself develops more because they're able to now through great levels of stress or near-death experiences that they can actually manifest and control it now.
Yeah.
Like they've matured. The powers have matured quite a bit.
Sure.
And then when it gets to the ending of the series the Roxxon have multiple sites of pipelines that can explode because that's where the energy is feeding out to. So even though it's dividing up, it's now dividing up throughout parts of the city of New Orleans.
Right, yeah.
It's coming to a culmination of a catastrophic event throughout the city.
Right.
And there is a psychic card reader of New Orleans who's predicting an energy or a dark force coming this way. And they're destined to do it. Only two can do this. Yeah, exactly. And one will live, one will fail. It feels like Transformers. One will live, one will fail, kind of thing. They're doomed. That's like the Romeo and Juliet of the story. Yeah. And then you get the characters like side characters like Detective O'Reilly, Detective Connor. Right. They're involved with it because O'Connor is a detective who shot Tyrone's brother, and it's kind of like bringing the cop to justice side story. And then you have Detective O'Reilly, who is aware that we have a dirty cop, and he's helping Tyrone do that. And that's where we are in part 2.
Yes.
What did I miss?
I don't think you missed anything. I think you kind of hit it on the head.
I hope, because I think sometimes I kind of go too long, and it's like, I want to make sure I catch all the nuances in this case.
No, but like suddenly, it's good. It's a good place to stop because now they have to watch the show.
Hopefully, I'm able to get you to the point where you'd like or invested to want to go see this. Sure. It is worth seeing. It's a slow burn in the first few chapters of the series, but it's an origin story. And then when they're starting to get into their own rhythm, it really does pick up, and it's quite exciting to see. Every day, it takes it from a perspective that every day like a normal person, if given these powers and are morally responsible with themselves and aware of who they are and where they're from and don't lose sight of that,
Right.
what would you do with that, and how would you handle yourself, and would you do for self-gain still, even though you are in a situation where you need the money, you need certain things to it,
Yeah.
but then the situation gets crazy like exciting at the end, and then like you're kind of stuck. You have to take part in it whether you want to or not.
Yeah, for sure.
It kind of does go like to a dark place, especially in the last half of the series.
Sure.
It becomes an awakening of for the kids in this version. This one is now that they have the powers. Is now okay. There are dark forces at work here, and we're going to have to like buckle in for a crazy ride that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I really thought it was handled really well because I didn't expect it to go where it went.
Right.
And there's a post-credit scene at the end of the finale that leads into a potential supervillain.
Right,
Did you see season 2 yet? Have you seen that yet?
No.
Yeah, I haven't seen it too, but I'm kind of. Someone told me there's a villain in that one, and I think we saw the origins of that villain.
Okay.
I could be. I don't know. I could actually be completely wrong, but there's something that happens after when it ends. There's a post-credit sequence.
Oh, I didn't watch the post-credits.
Oh, you didn't see it?
So
Oh, yeah.
I'll
So you have to
do
watch that because it sets up what season 2 is going to have.
Okay.
So, I would give the series an 8.5 out of 10.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely 8 for me.
Was there anything that would you recommend that you would say could have been done better or different, or if not, was there anything that you found you didn't like too much or dragged or whatever on that?
Yeah, a bit of Tyrone's school stuff. You know, that kind of dragged a.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
A bit, you know.
I thought maybe the angst he had with his teammates and it really didn't need to go there.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. I like the sequence where he touched his mother and he saw his mother's nightmares.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you understand like that one. You understood like why she was so protective over him and what made her become a top manager at Roxanne because of her fear, because her last son like wanted to do like goodbye him, nobility on her part,
right,
and putting pressure on herself.
True that.
I love the visual elements of it when they go to the dream sequences and stuff like that. That was really cool.
Pretty amazing, for sure.
And his basketball sequence, that was cool. Like,
Shows up.
Yeah. Did you understand like what was going on when he was in the final basketball sequence, like shot, like
and he missed
the shot? Yeah.
I think
You understood why, right? Did you? We don't have to explain what it is, but like, you understood like why he did it.
Yeah, I think
because they don't. It's not it's not really spelled out or like shown.
Something's going on, but you know what?
Okay.
I don't think I did.
Okay. No. It's how do I say? It's not like It's not so much the importance of you winning it or not. It's just understanding. Okay, it's there's a greater purpose than just winning. That's one of the themes of it. There's something else obviously towards it.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of every person he touched, he wigged them out. They were off their game.
Yeah.
And he was able to like control
get in there.
and
Exactly.
score. And got his team back up. And the significance of the thing of this particular sequence is that when his brother was in the ball team, he was able to get their team further in the finals than they've ever been before.
Yeah, exactly.
And to win would be the first time in, I guess, 8 to 10 years since the team's actually won it.
Yeah, exactly.
Since the brother. Okay. So it had a lot of significance of bringing the community together, bringing the team together.
Right.
Because he was on the outs with the team for quite some time.
Right. Yeah.
And him being able to control his powers really kind of brought it. It kind of reminded me of Teen Wolf almost.
Right. Okay.
Like he uses his powers to help help the team, but like become better at himself and then within the team. So that was structured really, really well. But overall, it could be 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention before we wrap this up?
No.
I'll see you next week.
I'm Evie.
I'm Ray. Take care.